Record crowds came to Cleve Hill, Cheltenham for the opening of the Bath and West.
The Farmers' Exhibition, 1947. Some say the story of modern farming begins here, with the introduction of the Agriculture Act.
That was after the war, when food security was a really big issue, obviously, because at one stage it looked like we were going to be running out of food. So any government after the war, I think, would have been keen to try and get more from our own resources. And it was a Labour government, and in 1947 they brought in the Agriculture Act, and the idea was to subsidise food production.
Bill Geen is a sheep farmer in North Devon. He was brought up in the aftermath of the Agriculture Act. Farmers were paid a certain amount per acre by the government to help with costs. He was farming when subsidies began arriving not from Westminster but from Brussels too.
Well, it certainly provided plenty of cheap food, which is what governments wanted and what the EU wanted. And the farmers have always stepped up to the mark and done what's needed. I think that would be true.
But in the past few years, everything has changed. We've left the EU, so we no longer get those subsidies. Of course, we've seen a pandemic, we've seen a war in Ukraine, which is putting untold pressure on prices. But it's more than that. The government's priorities have changed. Farmers are still getting subsidies, the same as they ever have done. But there's now stipulations as to how they spend those subsidies. And it's not about cheap food. Farmers receive around £20 per hectare in subsidies, but these come with a catch. They're to be spent on improving soil and moorlands, habitat management, hedgerow creation, tree planting. Worthy causes, but not designed to promote cheaper food.
It's going to need to be a clever trick. We need to protect the environment and produce more food. I think there are answers in robotics and genetics and introducing new ways of working, and certainly new ways of managing land that will help do that.
The industry has taken its concerns to Downing Street. The Farm to Fork Summit, the first meeting of its kind, brought together farmers, food producers and some of Britain's largest supermarkets. But the major retailers aren't bowing to pressure to lower their margins. The government's keeping up its drive towards net zero. One trade body that attended the summit described it as an empty meeting. Empty meetings mean empty shelves, and until a different funding model is agreed, higher food prices seem here to stay. Jeff Moody, GB News.